Hmm. So perception action, what is this? So basically the perception is the things that we take in terms of information. Here, I'm not taking in any information in this. I'm just practicing a technique in isolation. So a good analogy for this is almost learning how to drive. So here we're learning how to use the pedals essentially, which are the end product, the techniques, learning how to turn the wheel.
Yeah,
But that's only like step one of the equation. And what really comes into play, these are the actions as such, but the
yeah,
perception is the most vital piece. When we take the analogy of learning to drive, for example, it's the traffic lights. It may be a kid running in front that are chasing a ball that you got to stop very quickly. And these are the decisions and the things that we have to act upon, which make us essentially able to drive. It's not just the pushing the pedals, the changing of the gear. These are the mechanical actions, but it's the perception which allows everything to be different and essentially allows us to be able to drive effectively without any damage. And it's the same thing for us in sparring. The techniques themselves are the end product, but it's the decisions and how we get there and why they work is the important thing.
yeah. And I think the more complex and flashy that the skill looks on the pad, sometimes the more we think that there's thinking going on, that there is actually something being perceived and something acted upon. And even with the very simple one that we were doing there with the back kick, and there's I think a feeling that, oh well, you can't go until your opponent steps in. It's like,
Yeah.
sure, but then you have a simple cue. We're at the correct distance to begin with. There's a cue and there's a response. It's not you're not actually perceive. You've already been told what to perceive. So our
Hmm.
visual field isn't crowded. We're not, our attentional focus isn't shifting. It's narrow. Where we have a very simple cue to attend to, and it's a binary thing. It's an on-off switch. So the switch goes, I go. It's not you could say you're working on reaction times, but you're not really, because you've taken out all of the things that lead up to that reaction. So
Yeah.
in the end, these drills serve a particular purpose, and we'll come back to that later. But they are not preparing you for the introduction or for taking the technique and translating that into a sparring skill. And
Hmm.
I think that's
So
the
essentially, you're in a car park here, just driving around the corn, and that's what it is. It's very simple. It's a very isolated part of the whole game.
yeah. So I mean, and to take one of the analogies you gave earlier, like if you're going to cross the street, if you're a parent taking a child to the side of the street and you're teaching them to look left and right and put the foot on the zebra crossing and all the rest of it, that's all well and good, but they still have to learn how to perceive the distance between themselves and the approaching traffic on both sides. And you level that up when you're in a car at a junction and you've just about got the hang of the pedals and the balance of the clutch and the accelerator, and you have to judge, can you get onto that junction, onto that roundabout before the car meets you from the other side. This
Hmm.
now is a different thing. Can you get that to work when you're sitting in the car park? And the worst that happens is you look over at your dad and you're a bit embarrassed that you managed to conk out the car. That's bad. But you don't want to do the same thing in crossing a busy road. So there's a
Hmm.
point where you have to transition the skill or transition it into a skill from a simple technique.